What if the stories of entire civilizations have been hiding in plain sight, locked away in symbols no one could read? Across dusty ruins and crumbling tablets, an ancient script, silent for thousands of years, whispers secrets that could shatter our understanding of history. This isn't just about forgotten words. It's about lost empires, vanished cultures, and connections between peoples we never knew existed. The rediscovery of a single lost language doesn't just fill gaps in a textbook, it rewrites them, revealing a world far more interconnected and complex than we ever imagined. Picture this, a scholar hunched over a clay tablet, tracing lines carved by hands that haven't touched this earth for millennia. Each stroke, each curve, is a puzzle piece waiting to snap into place. And when it does, the past comes alive in ways that defy expectation. Trade routes we thought were myth suddenly appear on maps. Kingdoms we believed were isolated turn out to have been trading partners, allies, even rivals. The story of humanity isn't a series of isolated chapters, it's a web, and every thread we pull tightens the connections between us and those who came before. This is the power of language, not just as a way to communicate, but as a time machine. Deciphering these ancient scripts isn't just an academic exercise, it's a race against time to reclaim voices silenced for centuries. The scholars who dedicate their lives to this work aren't just translators, they're detectives, piecing together clues that rewrite entire eras. And what they've found so far, it's only the beginning, because every symbol cracked, every word understood, opens a door to a past we're only starting to comprehend. So let's step through that door together into a world where history isn't set in stone, but written in it, waiting to be read. Think about the last time you heard a story passed down through generations, how it changed slightly with each telling, yet kept its core truth alive. Now imagine that story silenced forever, its words erased by time. This is what happens when a language disappears. It's not just vocabulary fading away, it's entire worldviews, rituals, and memories dissolving into silence. Take the ancient script known as Linear A, carved into clay tablets by the Minoans over 3,000 years ago. For decades, scholars have strained to crack its code, knowing that behind those unreadable symbols lies a thriving civilization's secrets, their laws, their prayers, even their grocery lists. Every untranslated word is a door slammed shut on history, but when a lost language is finally deciphered, the effect is explosive. Consider the Rosetta Stone, a slab of black basalt that became the key to unlocking ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Before its discovery, Egypt's monumental inscriptions were just beautiful mysteries. Afterward, they became voices, pharaohs boasting of victories, merchants haggling over prices, ordinary people writing love letters. Suddenly, a culture frozen in stone breathed again, and that's the real power of these linguistic breakthroughs. They don't just add to history, they humanize it. What makes these discoveries so urgent is how much is still out there, waiting. In the deserts of Central Asia, clay tablets inscribed with the mysterious Kharosthi script hint at a forgotten Silk Road dialect. In the jungles of Mesoamerica, undeciphered glyphs sprawl across ruins, holding stories of kings and conquests we can't yet read. Each one is a ticking clock, eroding, crumbling, threatening to take its secrets to dust. The race to decode them isn't just about academic glory. It's about reclaiming the very fabric of our shared past before it unravels completely. Because every language recovered isn't just a relic, it's a bridge. A bridge stretching across centuries, connecting us to the hearts and minds of those who came before. and with each crossing, we realize how much of their world still lives in ours. The Rosetta Stone wasn't just a lucky find, it was a linguistic lightning bolt. When Napoleon's soldiers uncovered it in 1799, they had no idea they were holding the cipher to a 3,000-year-old mystery. What made this slab of rock so revolutionary wasn't just the words carved into it, but the way those words mirrored each other across three scripts: Greek, the everyday Demotic script, and the enigmatic hieroglyphs that had baffled scholars for centuries. Think of it like an ancient crossword puzzle where the same clue is written in three different languages. Suddenly, researchers had a reference point, a way to match symbols to sounds to meanings. But here's what's even more fascinating. The Rosetta Stone didn't give up its secrets easily. It took 23 years of relentless work by linguists like Jean-François Champollion to finally crack the code. He didn't just compare the texts, he immersed himself in the cultural context, tracing connections between Coptic, the last surviving descendant of ancient Egyptian, and the hieroglyphs themselves. When the breakthrough came, it wasn't just about translating words, it was about unlocking an entire mindset. Hieroglyphs weren't just literal symbols, they could represent sounds, ideas, even puns. A single carving could be a word, a prayer, or a piece of wordplay. This approach didn't just revive Egyptian history, it transformed how we study lost languages altogether. Modern scholars now look for these Rosetta moments everywhere: multilingual inscriptions, repeated phrases in trade records, even patterns in accounting tablets. Take the Indus Valley script, still undeciphered after a century of effort. Researchers pore over seals and pottery, searching for that one bilingual artifact, their own Rosetta Stone, that might finally let the Harappan people speak again. Or consider the Voynich Manuscript, its bizarre illustrations and unknown script taunting cryptographers for 600 years. Every faded page whispers the same question: what if the key is still out there? And that's the thrilling part. We know more Rosetta Stones must exist. Maybe it's a merchant's ledger buried in the sands of Mesopotamia, listing the same goods in Akkadian and an unknown tongue. Maybe it's a treaty between two kingdoms, etched in both a familiar language and one we've never seen. Every undiscovered artifact carries that potential, that promise, to be the key that opens another door to the past. Because when a script falls silent, it doesn't just take words with it, it takes stories, laws, jokes, the mundane details that make a civilization real. The Rosetta Stone taught us that language isn't just a tool for communication. It's a fingerprint left behind by people who laughed, argued, and dreamed just like we do. And somewhere, in some forgotten ruin, another fingerprint waits to be found. Beneath the sun-baked ruins of Crete lies a mystery etched into clay, a script so old it predates the legends of Greek heroes by centuries. Linear A, the writing system of the Minoan civilization, isn't just undeciphered, it's a ghost, haunting archaeologists with whispers of a culture that shaped the Mediterranean but left no voice of its own. Imagine walking through the labyrinthine halls of Knossos, surrounded by vibrant frescoes of bull leapers and goddesses, yet unable to read a single word they wrote. That's the frustration scholars face, a civilization frozen in time, its stories trapped behind symbols we can see but cannot understand. What makes Linear so tantalizing isn't just its age, it's what it represents. The Minoans weren't just another ancient society, they were pioneers. Their sprawling palaces, advanced plumbing, and vibrant art suggest a people far ahead of their time. But without their language, we're left guessing. Were they peaceful traders, as their lack of fortifications suggests? Or did their frescoes of double-edged swords hint at a darker side? Linear A could hold the answers, unlike Linear B, which was later adapted by the Mycenaeans to write an early form of Greek. Linear A belongs to a language with no known relatives. It's not just a code to crack, it's a linguistic island, isolated and enigmatic. Now, for the first time in over a century of failed attempts, new tools are emerging to tackle this puzzle. Artificial intelligence, trained on thousands of known languages, can spot patterns human eyes might miss. Computational linguists feed algorithms every scrap of Linear A, merchant receipts, temple inventories, even doodles on pottery, hoping to find the Rosetta moment hidden in the data. One theory suggests the script might encode a lost precursor to Etruscan or Luvian, languages spoken on the fringes of the ancient world. Another proposes it could be entirely unique, a linguistic dead end with no modern descendants. The stakes are higher than academic curiosity. If Linear A falls silent forever, we lose more than just Minoan tax records. We lose their poetry, their laws, their curses and blessings, the heartbeat of a civilization that influenced everything from Greek mythology to modern architecture. But if the code is broken, the payoff would be staggering. Suddenly, we'd hear the voices of the people who worshipped the snake goddess, who traded saffron with Egypt, who might have inspired the myth of Atlantis. Every translated syllable would rewrite our map of the ancient world, proving once again that history isn't just written by the victors. It's written by those who left words we can still read. And right now, beneath layers of dust and time, the Minoans are waiting to speak. The Indus Valley script isn't just a collection of symbols. It's a 4,000-year-old whisper from one of history's greatest urban experiments. Picture a civilization that stretched across what's now Pakistan and northwest India, with cities so advanced they had grid layouts, drainage systems, and even standardized brick sizes. Yet despite their architectural genius, the people of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro left behind no grand monuments boasting of their conquests, no royal decrees carved into stone. Instead, their legacy is etched into tiny soapstone seals, pottery fragments, and copper tablets, each bearing the same enigmatic script, crisp as the day it was pressed into clay. What makes these inscriptions so maddening isn't just their brevity. Most contain fewer than 5 symbols, but their stubborn refusal to match any known language. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mesopotamian cuneiform, the Indus script has no obvious descendants, no living relatives to offer clues. Some scholars see flashes of early Dravidian, the language family spoken today in southern India, hidden in those squiggles and fish-like shapes. Others argue it might not represent language at all, but something more akin to merchants' marks or religious sigils. The debate rages because without a bilingual inscription, an Indus Valley Rosetta Stone, every theory remains just that, a theory. But imagine if we could read those seals. Suddenly, the faceless artisans who carved them would step into the light. We might learn why this seemingly peaceful civilization, with no evidence of warfare or kings, thrived for nearly 1,000 years before vanishing. Those tiny inscriptions could reveal trade deals with Mesopotamia, where Indus-style seals have been found, or detailed rituals performed in their great baths. There's even a chance they'd rewrite the history of writing itself, proving that the Indus Valley didn't just borrow the idea of scripts from Mesopotamia, they might have developed it independently. New technologies are offering glimmers of hope. Computer algorithms analyzing symbol patterns suggest the script does encode language, not just random pictograms. Archaeologists are using 3D imaging to study seals worn smooth by time, revealing strokes invisible to the naked eye. And every dig in the region brings the tantalizing possibility of that one breakthrough artifact, a tablet with Indus script alongside Akkadian, or a seal bearing a familiar name. Until then, these symbols remain a locked door. Behind it, not just the story of a single civilization, but a missing chapter in humanity's collective memory, one that could reshape how we see the birth of cities, trade, and even language itself. Long before the Roman Forum echoed with speeches in Latin, another language danced through the hills of Italy, one so different, it might as well have come from another world. The Etruscans, masters of metallurgy and architects of sprawling necropolises, spoke a tongue that still baffles linguists today. Unlike Latin, which belongs to the Indo-European family shared by everything from Sanskrit to English, Etruscan stands utterly alone. No close relatives, no easy comparisons, just a linguistic rebel refusing to fit neatly into our textbooks. What makes this so extraordinary isn't just the mystery, it's the influence. The Romans didn't just conquer the Etruscans, they absorbed them. That iconic symbol of Rome, the she-wolf nursing Romulus and Remus, Etruscan artisans likely cast it. The gladiatorial games Rome became famous for, probably an Etruscan funeral tradition first. Even the very idea of a city built on 7 hills, that was Etruscan urban planning. Yet despite shaping Rome's DNA, their language vanished, leaving behind roughly 13,000 inscriptions, mostly short funeral epitaphs and ritual texts like breadcrumbs leading to a lost banquet. Recent breakthroughs, though, are starting to illuminate the shadows. Take the Pyrgi tablets, 3 gold sheets discovered in 1964. One side bears Phoenician, a language we understand. The other, Etruscan, this bilingual treasure revealed tantalizing glimpses, dedications to a goddess, hints of trade, even the name of an Etruscan king. But here's the catch, we're still missing the Rosetta Stone moment. Without longer texts, especially literature or histories, Etruscan remains a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Scholars can read words, but not the stories behind them. The stakes couldn't be higher. Every untranslated Etruscan word is a missed opportunity to hear the other side of Rome's origin story. Were the Etruscans, as some ancient historians claimed, refugees from Lydia in modern Turkey, or were they indigenous innovators? Their language might hold the answer. Even the alphabet tells a story adapted from Greek, but used to write a language with entirely different sounds and grammar. It's like finding a typewriter programmed for an alien dialect. Now imagine the revelations if we cracked it fully. Suddenly, we could read the original Etruscan books the Roman Emperor Claudius once studied, texts lost to time. We might uncover treaties, love poems, or even comedies mocking their Roman neighbors. The pre-Roman Mediterranean wasn't a blank slate waiting for empire, it was a chorus of voices. And right now, the Etruscans are the loudest singers we can barely hear. On the most isolated inhabited island on Earth, a secret hides in plain sight. The Rongorongo script of Easter Island isn't like other ancient writing systems. It wasn't borrowed, traded, or adapted from neighboring cultures. Carved into weathered wooden tablets by hands long gone, these glyphs represent one of humanity's rarest feats, a writing system born entirely in isolation. Picture a small island community, thousands of miles from the nearest continent, developing its own way to record history, myths, and knowledge without any outside influence. That's the marvel of Rongorongo. What makes these tablets so haunting isn't just their undeciphered symbols, it's what they might tell us about one of history's most famous collapses. Easter Island's story is often framed as a cautionary tale, a society that cut down its last tree, doomed by environmental short-sightedness. But what if the Rongorongo tablets hold a different narrative? Some researchers believe these glyphs could chronicle the island's true downfall, not just ecological mismanagement, but perhaps tsunamis, droughts, or even social upheaval. Without translation, we're left guessing whether the islanders saw their fate coming or fought desperately to prevent it. The challenge of cracking Rongorongo lies in its uniqueness. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mayan script, there's no bilingual inscription to act as a key. The last native speakers who might have understood it were taken as slaves in the 1860s, severing the linguistic thread forever. Today, only 26 fragile tablets survive, their glyphs arranged in a mesmerizing reverse Boustrophedon pattern, lines that zigzag like a plow turning at the end of a field. Some symbols resemble plants, animals, or celestial bodies. Others are pure abstraction, their meanings locked away. But here's where modern technology offers hope. Computational linguists are feeding Rongorongo's symbols into algorithms designed to detect statistical patterns, searching for the telltale rhythms of language hiding within the carvings. One tantalizing theory suggests the script might be proto-writing, a mix of true linguistic symbols and mnemonic aids, like an elaborate memory palace carved in wood. Others argue it could be a full-fledged writing system, recording everything from genealogies to astronomical observations. The urgency to decode Rongorongo goes beyond academic curiosity. These tablets aren't just historical artifacts, they're a cultural lifeline. For the Rapa Nui people, reclaiming their ancestors' voices could restore traditions erased by colonialism. For the world, they might offer something even more profound, a blueprint for resilience. Imagine if these glyphs contain ancient warnings about resource management or strategies for surviving in isolation. In an era of climate crises and cultural erosion, the lessons of Rongorongo could be more relevant than ever. Every stroke of those glyphs is a voice from the past whispering across the centuries. The only question is, are we ready to listen? The Voynich Manuscript doesn't just resist translation, it laughs at it. Imagine a book filled with plants that don't exist, naked women bathing in green liquid, and celestial diagrams that match no known astronomy. Now imagine it's all written in a script that looks like letters but forms no recognizable words in any language ever documented. That's the Voinish, a 200-page enigma penned in the 15th century, so stubbornly opaque that even codebreakers from World War II, fresh from cracking Nazi ciphers, threw up their hands in defeat. What makes this manuscript so uniquely maddening isn't just its content, it's the precision behind it. Statistical analysis shows its text follows linguistic patterns, with word frequencies and sentence structures resembling real languages. But every attempted decryption crumbles. Early theories claimed it was a coded alchemy manual or a secret herbalism text. Later, some argued it was an elaborate Renaissance prank, though the sheer effort, hundreds of pages in meticulous handwriting, makes that seem unlikely. Then came the wilder guesses, a lost dialect of Aramaic, a Proto-Ukrainian cipher, even a message from Atlantis. The illustrations only deepen the mystery. Herbal pages depict flora with bulbous roots and spiraling leaves, unlike any known species. Astronomical sections show galaxies in configurations impossible for the era's telescopes. And those infamous nymphs bathing in interconnected tubes, some researchers suggest they represent human anatomy, a medieval take on the lymphatic system, except no medical text from the period looks remotely like this. It's as if the author had access to knowledge far outside their time, or imagination untethered from reality. Now, artificial intelligence is entering the fray. In 2014, an algorithm analyzing the manuscript structure suggested it might be encoded Hebrew, with letters shuffled and vowels removed. Another study proposed links to Turkic languages, but without a Rosetta Stone moment, a single decipherable phrase to anchor the translations. These remain educated guesses. The manuscript's resistance to modern tech only fuels its legend. Here's what's at stake if we ever crack it. This isn't just about one bizarre book. The Voinish could be a portal to a shadow history of science, where medieval scholars explored ideas too radical for their time. Maybe it's a lone survivor of a suppressed intellectual tradition, or a traveler's record of encounters with unknown cultures. Or perhaps it's something simpler, a private diary of delusions rendered in a personal cipher. Until the code breaks, the Voinish remains a Rorschach test for the ages, reflecting back whatever obsession the viewer brings to it. And that's the real magic. In a world where we've mapped genomes and probed black holes, there's still a book that refuses to give up its secrets. Long before the Persian Empire rose to power, another civilization in what's now Iran was experimenting with a revolutionary idea, putting words into symbols. Proto-Elamite, scratched onto clay tablets over 5,000 years ago, isn't just old, it's a linguistic rebel. While Mesopotamia's cuneiform evolved slowly from simple pictures to abstract signs, Proto-Elamite appears fully formed, as if its inventors skipped the training wheels and went straight to writing complex administrative records. This isn't just a curiosity, it's a challenge to everything we thought we knew about how writing began. What makes these tablets so fascinating isn't just their age, it's what they represent. These aren't royal decrees or epic poems, they're inventories, lists of grain, livestock, and textiles, carefully notched by bureaucrats in the bustling cities of ancient Susa. But hidden in those dry accounts could be the DNA of an entire civilization. Unlike their Mesopotamian neighbors, the Proto-Elamites left no grand temples or warrior kings to tell their story. Their writing is their monument, and right now it's mute. The puzzle lies in the script's stubborn uniqueness. Over 1,000 symbols have been catalogued, some resembling tools or animals, others pure abstraction, but without a bilingual inscription or clear links to later languages. Each attempt at translation hits a wall. One breakthrough came when researchers realized certain signs followed mathematical patterns, likely representing quantities in a sophisticated accounting system. Imagine discovering an Excel spreadsheet from 3000 BC, complete with formulas but no way to read the labels. New technologies are flipping the script quite literally. High-resolution 3D imaging has revealed microscopic details in the clay, showing how scribes held their styluses and even corrected mistakes. Artificial intelligence analyzes symbol patterns, hunting for grammatical structures hidden in the numbers. And every digitized tablet adds to a growing database, creating the first ever Rosetta Net, a web of connections that might one day spark understanding. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Proto-Elamite falls silent forever, we lose a pivotal chapter in humanity's greatest invention, writing itself. But if deciphered, it could prove that writing didn't spread from Mesopotamia like ripples in a pond. It might have bubbled up independently in multiple places, as diverse as the cultures that created it. Suddenly, the story of civilization's cradle isn't about one river valley, but many, and on those sun-baked Iranian plains, a forgotten people wait to tell their side. A quiet revolution is unfolding in the world of ancient scripts, not in dusty archives, but inside humming data centers where algorithms work tirelessly to resurrect voices silenced for millennia. Artificial intelligence has become the newest tool in the linguist's toolkit, not as a replacement for human intuition, but as a force multiplier, capable of spotting connections no single scholar could ever detect. Take the case of Linear B, the Mycenaean script cracked in the 1950s after decades of painstaking labor. Today, machine learning models can analyze its symbols in minutes, cross-referencing thousands of potential linguistic patterns across continents and centuries. What makes this technological leap so extraordinary isn't just speed, it's scope. AI doesn't tire. It doesn't overlook a symbol because it's smudged or dismiss a pattern as coincidence. When researchers fed an algorithm thousands of examples of Ugaritic, a Semitic language deciphered in the 1930s, it taught itself to recognize the script's underlying structure. Then, when presented with fragments of undeciphered Proto-Sinatic script, a potential ancestor of the alphabet, it identified statistical echoes of Ugaritic that had eluded human eyes. This isn't just pattern recognition, it's digital archaeology peeling back layers of linguistic evolution. But here's where the human-AI partnership gets fascinating. In 2019, a team at Google's DeepMind trained a neural network on over 35,000 Greek inscriptions, many damaged or incomplete. The system, named Pythia after the Oracle of Delphi, didn't just restore missing text, it proposed multiple plausible reconstructions, complete with confidence ratings. Imagine holding a shattered clay tablet where half the words are lost. Pythia can't guarantee the exact original phrasing, but it can say, there's an 87% chance this gap contained a reference to olive oil shipments, based on parallels in thousands of similar documents. The implications stretch far beyond Greek. For scripts like the Indus Valley symbols or Rongorongo, where bilingual inscriptions remain elusive, AI offers a backdoor approach. By analyzing symbol frequencies, positional patterns, and even the visual shapes of characters, algorithms can hypothesize whether a script represents sounds, words, or concepts. One project studying the Voynich Manuscript used machine learning to cluster its bizarre glyphs into words that behave like verbs or nouns in natural languages, hinting that beneath the strangeness, there might be real grammar at work. Yet for all its power, AI has limits. Language isn't just math, it's culture, context, the messy brilliance of human creativity. An algorithm might flag that a particular Etruscan symbol often appears near words for wine, but it takes a historian to recognize this could reference a drinking ritual described in Roman texts. That's why the most promising projects pair machine learning with crowd-sourced human insight, like the platform where thousands of volunteers tag Proto-Elamite symbols, creating a dataset that teaches algorithms to see like a trained epigrapher. The horizon glows with possibility. In the next decade, quantum computing could turbocharge linguistic analysis, simulating how sounds shift across millennia to reconstruct proto-languages. Imagine an AI that doesn't just compare known scripts, but models how unknown ones might have evolved, like a digital time-lapse of linguistic change. Every undeciphered tablet, every cryptic glyph is a locked chest, and we're finally forging keys that fit. The question isn't whether AI will crack another lost language, but how many. And when it does, we won't just be reading words, we'll be eavesdropping on the past. When a lost language is finally deciphered, it doesn't just fill a gap in history, it rewires entire worldviews. Consider the moment scholars first decoded Mayan glyphs in the 20th century. For centuries, the Maya had been dismissed as a peaceful society of stargazers, their crumbling pyramids seen as monuments to primitive mysticism. But the words they left behind told a different story, one of warring kings, political intrigue, and complex diplomacy. Overnight, an entire civilization was transformed in the public imagination, not because the facts changed, but because we could finally hear them. This power to redefine identity extends far beyond academia. For the descendants of the Moch people in Peru, the ongoing efforts to decode their ancestors' quipu, knotted chords used as a writing system, aren't just about solving a puzzle. They're about reclaiming a narrative hijacked by Spanish chroniclers who dismissed these intricate chords as mere accounting tools. Imagine discovering your great-grandmother's diary, only to realize no one alive can read it. That urgency fuels modern indigenous linguists working alongside elders to reconstruct languages like Wampanoag or Nushu, a secret script used by women in China for centuries. Every word recovered isn't just a linguistic victory, it's an act of cultural resurrection. Yet with this power comes profound responsibility. When British archaeologist Michael Ventris cracked Linear B in the 1950s, he proved it was an early form of Greek, a revelation that thrilled scholars but also inadvertently fueled nationalist agendas. Suddenly, Mycenaean warriors were recast as proto-Greek heroes, their legacy politicized in ways Ventris never intended. This is the double-edged sword of linguistic discovery. Words can heal, but they can also be weaponized. Modern linguists now navigate these waters carefully, partnering with descendant communities to ensure translations honor context rather than exploit it. The goal isn't just accuracy, it's integrity. The ripple effects touch even the most personal stories. In Australia, the reclamation of the Gunditj Mara language has allowed elders to teach children phrases once suppressed by colonial policies. In Mexico, Zapotec activists use social media to share newly deciphered glyphs, connecting young people to pre-Hispanic poetry. These aren't abstract academic exercises, they're living bridges between past and present. When a language wakes from centuries of silence, it doesn't just speak, it sings. And the song it carries might rewrite everything we thought we knew about who we are, where we come from, and what voices deserve to be heard. Beneath the surface of every undeciphered ledger and merchant's seal lies a hidden economy, an intricate web of deals, debts, and handshakes stretching across deserts and oceans. Take those tiny Indus Valley seals, stamped with unicorn-like creatures and cryptic symbols. For decades, archaeologists assumed they were just markers of ownership, like ancient brand logos. But what if they're more? Imagine each one as a contract, a customs form, or even a receipt for shipments of lapis lazuli bound for Mesopotamian palaces. The sheer volume of these seals found in Mesopotamia's ruins suggests a trade network far more extensive than we've dared to guess. Without decoding them, we're left staring at the footprints of commerce, blind to the conversations that made it happen. Now shift the scene to the Minoan warehouses of Crete, where linear tablets sit stacked like forgotten spreadsheets. These aren't just lists, they're snapshots of a Bronze Age superpower's economy. The symbols for saffron appear again and again, hinting at a luxury trade so lucrative it might have bankrolled Knossos' sprawling palaces. But here's the twist: some tablets also show signs of rationing, suggesting a system more complex than simple barter. Were the Minoans early pioneers of centralized distribution, like a prehistoric version of a state-run grain dole? Or do those tablets record tributes from vassal islands, proof of an Aegean empire built on maritime control? Until we crack the code, their economic playbook remains a mystery. The real game changer, though, might be hiding in the Proto-Elamite tablets of ancient Iran. These aren't just clay, they're Bronze Age Excel sheets, tracking everything from sheep to silver in a script that predates even cuneiform. Recent imaging reveals something astonishing: tiny notches along the edges, almost like tick marks. Some researchers think these could be early attempts at double-entry bookkeeping, a system we thought wasn't invented until medieval Italy. If true, it would rewrite the history of accounting itself, proving that ancient bureaucrats were mathematical savants. But trade scripts aren't just about goods, they're about trust. A single deciphered phrase from a Hittite merchant's letter could reveal how deals were sealed across language barriers. Did they rely on translators, or had they developed a pigeon tongue, a Bronze Age version of today's business English? Even more tantalizing are the diplomatic overtures hidden in these texts. The Amarna letters, written in Akkadian between pharaohs and kings, show how closely trade and politics were entwined. Gifts of gold weren't just generosity, they were power plays. If we could read the unanswered letters, the ones sent to minor kingdoms or rebellious vassals, we might uncover the real politic of antiquity. What's at stake isn't just filling museum labels with prices and quantities. It's about hearing the voices of the people who made globalization possible: the middlemen, the ship captains, the tax collectors. Every undeciphered symbol is a missing link in the chain that connects us to the first entrepreneurs, the ones who looked at a map and saw not borders, but opportunities. And somewhere in those silent scripts, they're still speaking if only we could listen. Buried within the fibers of an Egyptian mummy lies a book that shouldn't exist: the Etruscan Liber Linteus, a sacred text preserved not by its own people, but by the very culture that outlived them. This linen manuscript, ripped into strips and used as bandages, is the longest surviving Etruscan document we have. Yet its words remain just out of reach, a liturgy of gods and rituals frozen in time. Imagine holding a prayer book where every chant, every invocation could rewrite our understanding of the afterlife if only we could read it. The Etruscans weren't just neighbors to the Romans, they were their spiritual mentors, teaching them the art of divination, the meaning of lightning strikes, even how to build a temple. But their deepest beliefs, those are still locked in symbols we can't fully grasp. Now, leap across the globe to Easter Island, where the Rongorongo glyphs curve like waves against wooden tablets. Some researchers believe these carvings don't just record harvests or lineages, they might be hymns. The key lies in their rhythm. Certain sequences repeat like refrains, mirroring the structure of Polynesian chants that honor creation gods like Make. If deciphered, these could reveal how the Rapa Nui people saw their place in the cosmos, not as isolated castaways, but as part of a celestial tapestry woven by gods who carved humans from volcanic rock. The irony is haunting: the very people who raised the iconic Moai statues, faces turned skyward, might have left behind their origin stories in a script we can't yet hear. What makes these religious texts so electrifying isn't just their content, it's their connective power. The Etruscans practiced liver divination, reading the future in animal entrails. Thousands of miles away, the Babylonians did the same. Coincidence or evidence of a spiritual dialogue stretching across the Mediterranean? Similarly, the serpent motifs in Minoan art find echoes in Mesoamerican temples. Are these universal symbols or proof of ancient exchange? Lost languages are the missing threads in this tapestry, and every deciphered prayer could reveal patterns we never noticed. But here's the real revelation waiting in these scripts: philosophy before philosophy. The Greeks, credited with inventing reasoned thought, might have had predecessors we've overlooked. A single Etruscan curse tablet could contain ethical debates, or a Rongorongo glyph sequence might outline an ecological ethos, a warning against overharvesting wrapped in metaphor. After all, the Aboriginal songlines of Australia encode environmental knowledge in sacred verse. Why not other cultures? The stakes are cosmic. If the Liber Linteus whispers of a forgotten underworld journey, or Rongorongo holds a hymn to the stars, we're not just recovering words. We're reclaiming ways of seeing entire worldviews that shaped how civilizations understood their place in the universe. And somewhere, in the curve of a glyph or the stroke of a faded character, a god might still be speaking. The moment a lost language yields its secrets, it doesn't always bring comfort. Sometimes it delivers truth like a thunderclap. Take the Maya, whose glyphs, once decoded, shattered the myth of peaceful astronomer priests tending jungle temples. Suddenly, we saw stelae not as celestial calendars, but as victory monuments celebrating the capture of rival kings, their blood spilled on pyramid steps. The romanticized vision of Mesoamerica crumbled overnight, replaced by a far more human portrait, a civilization capable of both breathtaking artistry and brutal warfare. But the Maya aren't alone. Every deciphered script carries this double-edged potential. Consider the Hittite tablets from Anatolia, which revealed a kingdom once dismissed as minor players to be master manipulators of Bronze Age geopolitics. Their texts exposed treaties broken under false pretenses, vassal states played against each other, even early forms of propaganda. For modern Turkey, where Hittite symbols adorn everything from banknotes to tourist souvenirs, these translations forced a reckoning. How do you honor ancestors whose politics don't align with contemporary values? The stakes grow even higher when language intersects with faith. For centuries, the Indus Valley script's silence allowed theorists to project their own beliefs onto it, some claiming it encoded Vedic hymns, others insisting it proved the existence of a lost utopia. If deciphered tomorrow, what happens if its texts contradict sacred traditions? Imagine the turmoil if linear tablets revealed Minoan rituals involving practices later condemned by Greek orthodoxy, or if Rongorongo glyphs described an Easter Island origin story at odds with oral histories preserved under colonial suppression. Archaeolinguists now walk a tightrope between academic rigor and ethical responsibility. When the Behistun inscription was deciphered in the 19th century, it became a tool for European powers to justify interventions in Persia, framed as rescuing history from local neglect. Today, scholars collaborate with descendant communities before publishing sensitive translations, recognizing that words carved in stone millennia ago can still ignite modern conflicts. The Proto-Elamite tablets of Iran, for instance, might reshape narratives about the region's earliest cities, but in a land where antiquity is politicized, even pottery shards can become ideological weapons. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't which uncomfortable truths lie hidden, but who gets to decide when they're revealed. The Voynich Manuscript's resistance to decoding has become its own kind of gift, a blank canvas onto which no painful history can be projected. Other scripts aren't so lucky. When the day comes that linear or the Indus symbols finally speak, will we be ready for what they say, not just as scholars, but as heirs to the very past we're so desperate to hear? History often remembers kings and conquerors, but what about the women who shaped civilizations behind the scenes or even ruled them outright? Buried within undeciphered scripts could be entire chapters of female influence we've never imagined. Take those linear B tablets from Crete, where women aren't just footnotes, they're central figures. The symbols list female names alongside holdings of grain, land, and even workshops, suggesting a society where women controlled economic resources long before classical Athens confined them to the home. But here's the twist. Linear B was used by the Mycenaeans, who borrowed it from the Minoan's still unreadable Linear A. If the earlier script holds even broader evidence of matriarchal power, we might be staring at a Bronze Age world where gender roles defied everything we assume about antiquity. Then there's the mystery of the Nushu script from China's Zhongyang County, a secret writing system created and used exclusively by women for centuries. Unlike the rigid characters of Mandarin, Nushu's flowing strokes were stitched into embroidery or whispered in songs, a coded sisterhood documenting everything from marriage grievances to spiritual hymns. Imagine what other female-only scripts might be hiding in plain sight. Temple inscriptions penned by priestesses, merchant contracts signed by widows inheriting their husbands' trades, or even diplomatic letters between queens whose names were later scrubbed from official records. The real bombshells could lie in scripts tied to societies that left no written histories of their own. The Pictish symbols carved into Scottish stones, for instance, might encode more than clan signatures, some researchers suggest they could represent a lost language influenced by Pictish women, who Roman historians noted fought alongside men. Or consider the Indus Valley seals, where repetitive motifs of goddess-like figures hint at a pantheon where female deities, and by extension, their human counterparts held unprecedented authority. Deciphering these scripts isn't just about correcting the historical record, it's about dismantling assumptions. For generations, scholars interpreted sparse evidence through the lens of patriarchal norms, assuming women's absence in texts meant absence in power. But what if the opposite is true? What if their voices were deliberately excluded from later records, or their roles so normalized that contemporaries didn't feel the need to document them as extraordinary? A single translated prayer tablet could reveal a high priestess's political clout, or a merchant's ledger might show women running textile empires. The urgency goes beyond academia. In Oaxaca, Mexico, modern Zapotec women are reviving ancient glyphs to reconnect with pre-Columbian matrilineal traditions. In India, Dalit scholars scour Sanskrit epics for marginalized voices, proving that language recovery can be both an intellectual and a social justice pursuit. Every undeciphered symbol is a potential key not just to the past, but to a future where history finally hears its silenced heroines. The question isn't whether women shaped these lost worlds. It's how loudly they'll speak when we learn to listen. What if the warnings we need most about climate catastrophe were written not in scientific journals, but in ancient scripts we can't yet read? Across the crumbling tablets of lost civilizations, environmental crises may be hiding in plain sight, encoded in symbols that could reveal how societies before us grappled with ecological disaster. Take those haunting Rongorongo glyphs from Easter Island. For years, the dominant narrative blamed the island's collapse on reckless deforestation, a cautionary tale of ecological short-sightedness. But what if the wooden tablets tell a different story? Some researchers notice recurring symbols resembling palm trees and birds, arranged in sequences that could document changing harvest yields or vanishing species. Perhaps these aren't just ritual texts, they might be a running tally of ecological decline, a civilization's real-time reckoning with its own limits. Now shift the scene to the Indus Valley, where merchants once tracked monsoons as meticulously as modern meteorologists. Their undeciphered seals and tablets might encode weather patterns critical to survival in a region where agriculture depended on predictable rains. Archaeologists have found evidence of a prolonged drought around 1900 BC, the same period Indus cities began emptying. Could those cryptic symbols be climate records, marking the years when rivers ran dry and trade networks faltered? Imagine uncovering a Bronze Age ledger that doesn't just list grain stores, but annotates them with symbols for failed rains or salt intrusion. Suddenly, history's greatest vanishing acts wouldn't be mysteries, they'd be case studies. The parallels to today are unnerving. Like the Minoans who relied on saffron exports until climate shifts disrupted trade, modern economies cling to fragile supply chains. The Akkadian empires collapsed during the 22nd century BC. Megadrought mirrors contemporary water wars in the Middle East. Even the Romans left behind price edicts showing how inflation spiked during crop failures, a lesson any modern policymaker might study. But here's the tragedy: we're still guessing. Without deciphering these scripts, we're left with archaeological breadcrumbs when we could have entire instruction manuals. Technology offers a glimmer of hope. Machine learning algorithms now cross-reference symbols with pollen samples and ice core data, searching for correlations between script patterns and environmental events. One project trained AI on Mayan glyphs linked to recorded droughts, then applied the same model to Proto-Elamite tablets, finding similar clusters of symbols during known periods of famine. It's not proof, but it's a start. The real revelation wouldn't just be how these societies fell, but how some endured. The ancestral pueblones of Choco Canyon adapted to aridification by building elaborate water systems, knowledge that might live on in undeciphered petroglyphs. The Maya shifted from corn to drought-resistant crops in some regions, a pivot that could be hidden in glyphs we've misread as purely religious. These aren't ancient failures, they're survival strategies waiting to be rediscovered. Decoding these scripts isn't just academic, it's urgent. As glaciers melt and crops fail, the past isn't a distant mirror, it's a blueprint. Those symbols aren't silent. They're screaming across millennia if only we'd learn to listen. The hunt for bilingual artifacts isn't just archaeology, it's a high-stakes treasure hunt where the prize isn't gold but understanding. Imagine digging through the ruins of a forgotten port city, your brush revealing a stone slab with 2 columns of text, one in a script you recognize, the other in symbols that have baffled scholars for generations. That's the dream. The Rosetta Stone proved it's possible, but it's far from alone. In 2021, a farmer plowing his field in central Turkey unearthed a broken tablet with lines of Luwian, a known ancient language, alongside a mysterious script dubbed Zipperlander. Overnight, a routine dig became front-page news. What makes these bilingual texts so transformative isn't just the side-by-side comparison, it's the context they provide. The Etruscan Phoenician tablets found near the Italian coast didn't just translate words, they revealed trade agreements between 2 cultures we never knew communicated. Suddenly, the Phoenicians weren't just distant seafarers, they were negotiators haggling over Etruscan copper and wine. But here's the catch, these discoveries are staggeringly rare. For every Rosetta Stone, there are thousands of undeciphered inscriptions sitting in museum basements, waiting for their twin to surface. The search now spans continents and centuries. Some teams focus on border regions where cultures collided, like the ancient city of Dura Europos in Syria, where Greek, Aramaic, and Pomeran inscriptions mingle on temple walls. Others dive into shipwrecks, hoping to find cargo manifests in duplicate scripts. Even graffiti holds promise. A scrawled curse in both Latin and Iberian could crack the latter's code. The most tantalizing leads come from administrative hubs. Tax records, treaties, and diplomatic letters were often copied in multiple languages for clarity. A single filing cabinet's worth of clay tablets from a Hittite outpost might contain the key to half a dozen lost tongues. Technology is reshaping the quest. AI-powered image recognition scans satellite photos for telltale rectangular ruins, potential archives where bilingual texts might lurk. Drones map dig sites in 3D, highlighting anomalies too subtle for the human eye. Meanwhile, databases catalog every known symbol from undeciphered scripts, flagging potential matches when new artifacts emerge. It's like assembling a planetary-scale jigsaw puzzle where most pieces are still buried. The next big breakthrough could come from anywhere. Maybe it's a merchant's tomb in Uzbekistan, his epitaph carved in both Sogdian and an unknown Silk Road dialect. Maybe it's a votive offering in Sardinia, where neuralgic symbols sit beside Phoenician prayers. Or perhaps it's already in plain sight, a misunderstood stele in a Cairo museum, waiting for someone to notice the faint Greek translation chiseled along its edge. Every excavation begins with the same whispered hope. This could be the one, because when a bilingual text finally speaks, it doesn't just translate words, it bridges worlds. Long before ink touched parchment, stories lived in the air, passed from elder to child, woven into song, etched into memory so deep they outlasted empires. That's the hidden power of scripts like Rongorongo or the undeciphered symbols of the Indus Valley. They might not just record dry inventories or royal decrees, but the very heartbeat of oral tradition frozen in time. Think of the Polynesian chants that navigate by stars, or the Aboriginal songlines that map landscapes through verse. These aren't just stories, they're lifelines, survival guides disguised as poetry. And somewhere in the curve of a Rongorongo glyph or the zigzag of a Proto-Elamite tablet, an entire epic might be waiting, not carved for kings but for the keepers of firelight tales. Take the Voynich Manuscript's bizarre botanical illustrations. What if they're not just fantastical plants, but mnemonic devices for herbal lore sung by medieval healers? The symbols could encode rhymes or rhythms meant to be chanted, a pharmacopoeia set to melody. Similarly, those repetitive sequences in the Indus script, dismissed by some as mere accounting marks, might follow the cadence of Vedic hymns, where rhythm was as crucial as meaning. After all, the Rigveda was preserved orally for millennia before being written down, its syllables precise enough to rebuild a universe. The real breakthrough would come if we could marry these scripts with living traditions. In the Pacific, elders still recite chants that mirror Rongorongo's symbol patterns, suggesting the glyphs might be a kind of musical notation. Imagine decoding a tablet and finding it matches a chant passed down in Rapa Nui families for generations, not word for word, but in its rising and falling cadence. Suddenly, a script isn't just writing, it's sheet music for the ancestors' voices. But here's the twist: some oral traditions actively resist writing. The Druids of Gaul famously refused to record their knowledge, believing power faded when words were trapped on parchment. Could this explain why certain scripts remain stubbornly cryptic? Perhaps they're not meant to be read silently but performed, their true meaning unlocked only through ritual recitation. The Kharosthi script of ancient Gandhara, for instance, often appears alongside Buddhist oral teachings. Deciphering it might require not just linguistic skill, but the rhythm of a mantra. What's at stake isn't just academic. For indigenous communities today, reclaiming these scripts could mean reuniting fractured identities. The Cherokee syllabary, invented in the 19th century, didn't just preserve language, it became a shield against cultural erasure. Similarly, if linear were found to encode Minoan creation myths, it wouldn't just fill library shelves, it might offer modern Cretans a portal to their pre-Greek heritage. Every symbol cracked is a thread pulled through time, stitching oral memory back into the fabric of the present. The irony is haunting. The very societies that mastered writing often undervalued their own oral traditions, leaving us to dig through ruins for echoes of what was once sung aloud. But somewhere in the space between a glyph and a melody, between a scribe's hand and a storyteller's breath, the past still hums, and if we listen closely enough, we might just hear it. Colonial powers didn't just rewrite maps, they rewrote voices. When Spanish priests burned Maya codices in the 16th century, they weren't destroying books, they were erasing a worldview. Across continents, from the British suppression of Gaelic in Ireland to the Russian eradication of Circassian scripts in the Caucasus, language became a weapon of control. The message was clear: speak the conqueror's tongue or be silenced. But here's what colonial powers underestimated: words carved into clay or whispered in secret have a way of outlasting empires. Take the case of Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs. After the Spanish conquest, Franciscan friars systematically dismantled its written form, replacing indigenous glyphs with the Latin alphabet. Yet today, scholars working with Nahua communities are piecing together pre-colonial manuscripts like the Codex Borgia, not just as linguistic curiosities, but as living bridges to cultural memory. In Oaxaca, Zapotec activists are doing the same, reviving ancient glyphs to teach children their ancestors' stories. This isn't archaeology, it's justice. The ethical stakes are profound. For decades, Western academics treated decipherment as an intellectual puzzle, often ignoring the descendants of script creators. Now, projects like the Maya Hieroglyphic Database Partner Initiative flip that model, training indigenous epigraphers to lead research on their own heritage. When a modern KH Maya speaker reads an 8th century stela aloud for the first time in 1,000 years, that's not just translation, it's time travel. Yet challenges persist. Many colonial-era language bands severed intergenerational knowledge so thoroughly that even community-led revival efforts face gaps. The Aboriginal peoples of Tasmania, for instance, have only fragmentary records of their original languages after British policies nearly erased them. Here, technology offers unexpected aid. AI models trained on missionary recordings and settler diaries can suggest probable grammatical structures, giving communities a foundation to rebuild upon. But true reclamation goes beyond dictionaries. In New Zealand, the Maori language revival movement didn't stop at teaching te reo in schools. They fought for its use in courts, media, and even pop music, proving a language thrives when it lives in the present. Similarly, the Cherokee Nation's immersion schools don't just preserve syllabary, they use it to text memes and rap lyrics, weaving tradition into modernity. The question isn't just how to decipher lost scripts, but what we owe to the cultures that created them. Every translated word is a thread pulled from the fabric of erasure, but the real work is handing the needle back. Because languages aren't relics, they're revolutions waiting to be spoken again. The moment a lost language speaks again, it doesn't just fill museum cases, it fills cash registers. Consider the flood of tourists that poured into Crete after Linear B's decipherment revealed the Mycenaeans' intricate trade networks. Suddenly, those dusty palace ruins weren't just rubble. They were the backdrop of a Bronze Age economic powerhouse, complete with storied merchant quarters and storerooms straight out of Homer. Visitor numbers spiked by 40% in a single decade, proving that history isn't just enlightening, it's lucrative, but the ripple effects go far beyond ticket sales. When the Maya glyphs were cracked, entire cottage industries sprang up in Guatemala's highlands, from local guides weaving ancestral stories into tours to artisans reviving pre-Columbian textile patterns once hidden in undeciphered codices. Then there's the tech boom sparked by linguistic breakthroughs. The same algorithms that teased apart the structure of Ugaritic script now power AI transcription tools used in hospitals and courtrooms worldwide. Cryptographers studying the Voynich Manuscript's uncrackable cipher developed techniques that later fortified blockchain security. Even the humble barcode traces its lineage back to an idea sparked by ancient Sumerian inventory marks, proof that 5,000-year-old accounting tricks can still shape modern commerce. But perhaps the most unexpected windfall comes from the creative industries. A single deciphered phrase from the Etruscan Liber Lintius inspired a best-selling novel series about priestesses of the underworld, while Netflix's hit documentary on the Indus Valley script sent sales of Harappan-style pottery soaring on Etsy. In New Zealand, the revival of Maori oral traditions, once suppressed, now fuels a booming cultural tourism sector where visitors don't just see performances, they learn to carve their own stories in ancestral patterns. Yet with profit comes ethical dilemmas. When corporations trademark revived symbols for clothing lines or video games, who really benefits? The Rosetta Stone's likeness appears on everything from Swiss watches to Japanese anime, yet Egypt sees none of those royalties. Meanwhile, Zapotec weavers in Oaxaca fight multinationals copying their glyph-inspired designs without compensation. The question isn't just who can monetize these rediscovered languages, but who should. Because the true value of a deciphered script isn't just measured in dollars, it's in the living communities reclaiming their voice after centuries of silence. The next frontier, language as intellectual property. Imagine a world where the Peshawar Museum licenses Gandharan Buddhist texts to meditation apps, or Rapa Nui elders control commercial use of Rongorongo glyphs. The business of lost languages is just waking up, and its balance sheets might one day be written in scripts we've only begun to understand. The moment a long-lost script is finally deciphered, it doesn't just unlock history, it ignites a firestorm of ethical questions. Who has the right to claim these rediscovered words? The scholars who spent decades cracking the code, the modern communities who see their ancestors' voices finally heard, or does this knowledge belong to all of humanity, a shared inheritance too precious to be owned? Nowhere are these tensions more visible than with the Phaistos disc, that cryptic clay circle stamped with mysterious symbols, unearthed in Crete over a century ago. Housed in a museum halfway across the Mediterranean from its homeland, its undeciphered script has become a battleground not just of linguistics, but of legacy. Take the fight over access. When high-resolution scans of the disc were first published online, archaeologists cheered the chance to crowdsource solutions. But Cretan cultural leaders protested. Shouldn't the island's people, whose ancestors may have crafted this artifact, have first claim to its secrets? The dispute mirrors larger struggles, like the Egyptian government's push to digitize and monetize scans of Tutankhamun's tomb texts, or the Navajo Nation's legal battles to restrict research on ancestral remains. In an era when a single photograph can circle the globe in seconds, who decides when sacred or sensitive texts enter the public domain? Then there's the thornier issue of repatriation. The Phaistos disc isn't unique. Museums from Berlin to Boston hold thousands of undeciphered tablets, seals, and scrolls taken during colonial eras. Greece's decades-long campaign to reclaim the Parthenon marbles sets a precedent. If cultural patrimony matters for sculpture, why not for scripts? But scholars counter that some texts might never have survived if removed from climate-controlled collections. The irony stings. The very institutions accused of appropriation may have preserved these languages from oblivion. Commercialization adds fuel to the fire. When a tech company trademarked a font based on the undeciphered Vinca symbols of ancient Serbia, activists erupted. These weren't abstract designs, they were a potential linguistic heritage, now branded on coffee mugs and smartphone cases. Similar fights erupt over Rongorongo reproductions sold as tourist trinkets, or Maya glyphs slapped on fast fashion. The line between celebration and exploitation blurs when sacred symbols become souvenirs. Yet solutions are emerging. In New Zealand, Maori elders partner with linguists to co-author papers on pre-colonial scripts, ensuring traditional knowledge guides academic interpretation. In Mexico, Zapotec communities license high-quality replicas of ancestral codices, with profits funding language revitalization programs. Even the Phaistos disc may find middle ground. Crete's Heraklion Museum now trains local students in epigraphy, weaving modern identity into ancient decipherment. The heart of the debate isn't just about ownership, it's about voice. When a language wakes from centuries of silence, who gets to shape the story it tells? The answer will define not just how we study the past, but who gets to belong to it. The race to unlock history's silent scripts is accelerating at a pace our ancestors couldn't have dreamed of. Imagine an algorithm scanning 10,000 Indus Valley symbols in the time it takes a linguist to pour their morning coffee, cross-referencing each squiggle with every known language family, hunting for patterns invisible to the human eye. This isn't science fiction. Projects like the Digital Rosetta Stone are turning global volunteers into virtual archaeologists, sifting through 3D scans of crumbling tablets from their living rooms. One amateur in Oslo might spot a symbol cluster matching ancient Elamite trade records. while a student in Mumbai notices numerical sequences aligning with Mesopotamian moon cycles. Together, they're stitching together a patchwork of understanding that no single scholar could achieve in a lifetime. Yet for every linear B cracked by mid-century cryptographers, there's a Proto-Elamite or Rongorongo that resists even our most advanced tools. Some scripts may guard their secrets forever, not because we lack brilliance, but because they represent linguistic dead ends, isolated tongues with no living relatives to offer clues. The Voynich Manuscript taunts us with this possibility. Its floral illustrations and looping glyphs might encode a personal cipher known only to its long-dead author, a Renaissance eccentric who took their private joke to the grave. These enduring mysteries aren't failures, they're reminders that the past doesn't owe us all its answers. What's thrilling are the scripts poised on the brink of revelation. The Meroitic script of ancient Sudan, used by the Kingdom of Kush, has defied translation despite bilingual inscriptions until now. Machine learning models trained on Egyptian Demotic texts are finding statistical echoes in Meroitic's elegant curves, suggesting it may encode a Nubian language lost for millennia. Similarly, breakthroughs in understanding Mayan numerals are being repurposed to tackle the Olmec script of Mesoamerica's mother culture. If successful, we could hear the voices of the people who inspired the Maya's earliest glyphs. The next frontier, lost languages we haven't even discovered yet. Satellite imagery reveals buried cities in the Amazon and Arabian deserts, each potentially hiding archives of unknown scripts. A single shipwreck off Oman's coast could yield a merchant's logbook in 2 languages, rewriting Indian Ocean trade routes. Even our museums hold surprises. The British Library recently found mislabeled fragments of a parchment that turned out to be a lost dialect of Aramaic. But the real revolution isn't just technological, it's collaborative. Indigenous communities from Easter Island to the Indus Valley are partnering with linguists, merging cutting-edge science with oral traditions that preserved clues in plain sight. When a Rapa Nui elder recognized a Rongorongo glyph as matching a chant about seabird migrations, it wasn't just a breakthrough, it was justice. After centuries of outsiders dictating their history, these communities are reclaiming the narrative, one deciphered word at a time. The future of lost languages isn't just about solving puzzles, it's about restoring voices that colonialism, time, or tragedy tried to erase. And somewhere, etched in clay or stone or bark, the next great revelation waits. The story of Linear B's decipherment reads like an intellectual thriller, one part code-breaking genius, one part stubborn persistence, and a dash of serendipity that changed history. Picture Michael Ventris, a young British architect with no formal training in linguistics, hunched over clay tablets inscribed with symbols that had baffled scholars for decades. His tools weren't just dictionaries and grammars, but grids. Endless grids where he mapped symbols against probable sounds, testing theories with the precision of a mathematician. What made his breakthrough revolutionary wasn't just the realization that Linear B encoded an early form of Greek. It was the way he got there. Ventris didn't work in isolation. He built on the meticulous cataloging of scholars like Alice Kober, who had painstakingly recorded symbols' frequencies and positions before her untimely death. Their combined efforts turned a jumble of markings into a window onto the Mycenaean world, proving that Greek didn't begin with Homer. It stretched back to the Bronze Age, spoken by palace officials who tracked olive oil shipments and bronze weapon stores with bureaucratic efficiency. The implications were seismic. Suddenly, the heroes of Greek myth Agamemnon, Odysseus weren't just legends. They were echoes of a real civilization that thrived centuries earlier than anyone had guessed. Linear B tablets revealed a world of centralized economies, where scribes recorded everything from chariot wheels to religious offerings. their dry inventories humanized by personal touches. One tablet lists a pair of sandals reserved for the Watchers of the Sea, a poetic job title lost to time until Ventris's work brought it back. But here's the twist: Linear B was borrowed from an even older script, Linear A, used by the Minoans, which remains undeciphered. The very system that unlocked Mycenaean Greek is a borrowed toolkit, hinting that the Minoans might have been writing something entirely different. Today, Ventris's methods inspire modern decipherment projects, but with a high-tech twist. Where he relied on index cards, researchers now use machine learning to analyze symbol patterns in Linear A, searching for the statistical fingerprints of language. Teams collaborate across borders, sharing 3D scans of tablets in real time, a far cry from the lone scholar laboring in a library. The lesson of Linear B isn't just that scripts can be cracked, it's that breakthroughs happen when rigor meets creativity, when someone dares to ask, what if we've been looking at this all wrong? Ventris's legacy isn't just a translated script, it's a roadmap for the next great decipherment. And somewhere in the labyrinth of symbols left by the Minoans, there's another voice waiting to speak. The only question is, who's listening? The weight of an undeciphered script is more than academic. It's a psychological labyrinth where every dead end feels personal. Take the case of Alice Kober, the unsung architect behind Linear B's decoding. For years, she filled 46 notebooks with painstaking symbol analysis, often working late into the night after teaching full-time. Her meticulous grids revealed patterns others missed, but the toll was invisible: chain smoking, dwindling health, and a premature death at 43, just years before Ventris would stand on her shoulders to crack the code. Kober never saw her life's work validated, a haunting reminder that linguistic breakthroughs often come too late for those who laid the groundwork. Then there's the isolation. Imagine staring at symbols no living person understands, aware that your theories might be dismissed as fantasy. Michael Ventris faced ridicule when he first suggested Linear B encoded Greek, a notion so radical, even his mentor called it preposterous. The skepticism gnawed at him. He'd later describe the decipherment process as a kind of madness. For every eureka moment, there were months of doubt where symbols blurred into meaningless scratches and the fear of wasted years loomed large. Ventris's tragic car crash at 34, just 2 years after his triumph, adds a layer of melancholy to his story, a genius who unlocked the past but couldn't outrun his own demons. Yet the allure persists. Russian linguist Yuri Norizov, who cracked the Maya script's phonetic elements, did so under Stalin's regime, surrounded by KGB surveillance. His breakthrough came not in a university library, but in a war-torn Berlin bunker, where he salvaged a book on Mayan glyphs from the flames. The pressure was existential. Failure meant oblivion in an era when academic missteps could be deadly. Norizov's later confession, "I felt the Maya scribes whispering to me," wasn't just poetic. It was the confession of a man who'd risked everything to hear those voices. Modern decipherers face different but equally daunting challenges. The scholars laboring over Rongorongo or Proto-Elamite today endure funding battles, academic politics, and the quiet despair of knowing they may never see their work bear fruit. One researcher described staring at the same Indus Valley seal for a decade, dreaming in symbols that refused to resolve into meaning. The psychological toll mirrors that of elite athletes or concert pianists' years of repetitive, solitary labor with no guarantee of success. What keeps them going? For some, it's the ghostly intimacy of connecting with minds across millennia. For others, it's the competitive thrill of solving history's hardest puzzles. But perhaps the real drive is simpler, the unshakable belief that every language, no matter how silent, wants to be understood. that buried beneath the frustration and dead ends, there's a moment waiting when the past will suddenly, dazzlingly make sense. And for those who chase that moment, no cost is too high. The digital age has turned every smartphone into a potential archaeological tool, inviting armchair detectives and history buffs alike to join the hunt for lost languages. Platforms like Zooniverse's Ancient Lives have transformed dusty papyrus fragments into a global puzzle, where a retiree in Tokyo might spot a Greek word missed by scholars, while a high school student in Brazil connects symbols across scattered tablets. This isn't just busy work, it's a revolution in how we approach the past. When the Herculaneum papyri, carbonized by Mount Vesuvius's eruption, were deemed too fragile to unroll, researchers uploaded high-resolution scans to the internet. Within weeks, volunteers worldwide had transcribed thousands of characters, some revealing previously unknown philosophical texts. The collective brainpower of thousands, guided by intuitive design and gamified challenges, can outperform even the most dedicated academic team working in isolation. But the magic of crowdsourcing isn't just speed, it's diversity of perspective. A musician might recognize rhythmic patterns in Rongorongo glyphs that linguists overlook, or a textile artist could identify weaving terms encoded in Minoan symbols. The Proto-Elamite digital project harnessed this power brilliantly. Amateur contributors helped categorize thousands of numerical notations, revealing a sophisticated accounting system that predated Mesopotamian math. Suddenly, what seemed like dry record-keeping became evidence of an innovative economy. Even failed attempts matter. Every misread symbol or dead-end theory trains AI algorithms to refine their searches, turning guesswork into data. Participation is simpler than many realize. You don't need a PhD to spot repeating symbols on a 3D scanned tablet or flag potential bilingual inscriptions in archival photos. Projects like the Citizen Science Alliance provide interactive tutorials, turning novices into competent contributors within minutes. The thrill of potentially being the first person in millennia to read a phrase, like the volunteer who identified a lost Euripides play in a palimpsest, is addictive. And the impact is real. When the Linear, a digital corpus, invited public input, previously unnoticed symbol clusters emerged, suggesting grammatical structures that could finally crack the script. This collaborative spirit also bridges cultural gaps. Indigenous communities, often sidelined in academic research, are now co-designing platforms to document endangered scripts. The Maori-led Te Reo Irarangi project uses crowdsourcing to match oral traditions with early written records, reclaiming narratives distorted by colonialism. Similarly, the Living Tongues Institute partners with Amazonian tribes to digitize glyphs before elders pass away, ensuring their knowledge fuels future decipherment rather than gathering dust in foreign museums. The invitation is open. Whether you're sketching Indus Valley symbols on a tablet app or tagging Proto-Sinatic inscriptions in a photo database, you're not just observing history, you're shaping it. Every click, every transcription adds another thread to the tapestry of human connection. And somewhere in that vast digital workshop, the next Rosetta Stone might be waiting, not in a desert, but on your screen. The search for lost languages isn't just about filling gaps in history books, it's about reclaiming voices that shaped who we are. Every time a script is deciphered, it's like finding a hidden room in the house of human experience, one that changes how we see the entire structure. Take the Minoans. For decades, they were seen as a peaceful, artistic society, until Linear B revealed a world of bureaucrats tracking weapons and tributes. Or the Maya, whose glyphs appended the myth of the noble savage, showing us kings who waged wars and forged alliances with the same cunning as any modern politician. These aren't just corrections to the historical record. They're reminders that the past was as messy, complex, and vibrant as our own lives. What makes this pursuit so urgent is how much is still at stake. Right now, climate change is eroding coastal ruins where undiscovered tablets may lie. Looting and conflict threaten archives in regions like Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. Even time itself is an enemy. Every year, organic materials like wood or leather inscriptions decay beyond recovery. The race to decode these scripts isn't just academic, it's a rescue mission. Imagine a library burning down, and you're trying to save the books before the flames reach them. That's the urgency driving linguists, archaeologists, and even AI researchers today. Yet the promise of what's left to discover is staggering. Think of the personal stories waiting in those untranslated texts, the love letters, the jokes, the grocery lists that humanize people we've only known through statues and ruins. The mundane details are often the most revealing. A single deciphered receipt from a Bronze Age merchant could rewrite trade routes, while a scribe's doodle in the margins might hint at classroom life 3,000 years ago. These aren't just artifacts, they're windows into the daily rhythms of lives once lived. Technology is tipping the scales in our favor. Machine learning can now analyze symbol patterns across thousands of inscriptions in seconds, spotting connections no human could. Crowdsourcing projects let enthusiasts worldwide contribute to breakthroughs, like the volunteer who recently matched a fragment of linear to a Cretan mountain shrine's layout. Even DNA analysis is joining the effort, with geneticists tracing population movements that hint at language origins. The next Rosetta Stone might not be a physical object at all. It could be a digital algorithm, a crowdsourced insight, or a chance discovery in a museum basement. But the real impact goes beyond academia. When a language is revived, it doesn't just speak to scholars, it speaks to descendants. The Maori Renaissance of Rio, the Cherokee Nation's language immersion schools, the Zapotec activists teaching glyphs to their children. These aren't just cultural revivals, they're acts of defiance against erasure. Every deciphered word is a thread reconnecting communities to ancestors they were told had vanished. And in a world where globalization often flattens differences, these rediscovered voices remind us that diversity isn't just valuable, it's essential. So what happens next? Maybe an AI cracks the Voynich Manuscript tomorrow, revealing a medieval herbalist's secret notes. Maybe a storm uncovers a cache of Proto-Elamite tablets in Iran, rewriting the origins of writing itself. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to spot a pattern everyone else missed. The beauty of this quest is its unpredictability, because the past isn't static, it's a conversation, and we're only just beginning to hear the other side. What do you think these ancient voices will tell us when they finally break through? Drop your theories in the comments, and if you're as hooked on these mysteries as we are, hit subscribe. The next chapter of history's greatest decipherments is waiting, and it's going to be unforgettable.